Hey folks, I hope all is well with everyone today. So today is going to be all about the MPC's sampler and exploring different sampling techniques and different methods of capturing samples using the sampler's built-in features. Now from the outset, I want to let you know that this is not going to include sample manipulation or chopping or editing, okay, or any kind of processing, unfortunately. Initially, I did want to do a sampling 101 type tutorial that included sampling and chopping together, but very quickly realized that with the amount of information on the subject, it would be best to probably make two separate videos. So this video is basically part one. So this is sampling methods and techniques, and they're going to be 5 total. Yeah. Now, and then our very next video will be a continuation of this one, and will be about sample prep, editing, chopping, processing, all that. Okay, sample manipulation. Now, I'm pretty sure that we all know what sampling is, but I'll give a quick definition anyway. Sampling is essentially recording or capturing audio, typically from external sources like a record player, turntable, phone, microphone, anything. But as I'll demonstrate here in a little bit, the sound doesn't necessarily have to be external. That's right. There's a way to take any sound that's already on your MPC, whether it be a drum program or any synth or plugin, to capture it, process, chop, and save it just like any other sample. Okay, so first, a few things. First and foremost, if you've seen my other tutorials, you know that my first suggestion is to create a dedicated folder for whatever we're doing. So since it's samples, I will go ahead and, before you do anything, create a samples folder in your external drive. Because once we start cutting some samples, you ended up with quite a few. So create dedicated samples folder. Okay, number one. Second thing, if you haven't already, create an empty drum program and label it whatever you like. You see I label mine sample cuts. Okay, so third thing we need to do, and pretty much final thing as far as settings, is go into your menu and preferences, audio export. Yep, and just make sure your recording bit depth is on 24. All that does is just ensures that the audio recorded is higher quality. 24-bit is higher quality than 16-bit. That's all. So accessing the sampler is easy. Okay, I'll go ahead and give you the device-specific hardware shortcuts, and then I'll show you the way you can do it on all of them. Okay, so obviously, if you have an X or a 1, that's the X, the XSE, an MPC 1 or a 1 Plus, it's a dedicated sampler button. Okay, the new Live 3 and the Key series, so that's the Live 3 and the Key 37 and the Key 61. You're going to do Shift and Sample Edit. And the Live 2 will be Shift and Mix. Now, any model, obviously sampler, and probably the quickest way is just menu, sampler. Menu, wherever you have it, sampler. Boom, right there. Okay, and of course, from your drum program, you can just tap record and then there. Okay, the sampler. Now that we have the sampler open, I'm going to quickly walk you through the GUI, the user interface, and quickly, because I know we want to get to work here. So starting from the top left, working our way down and then over. Let's see, it's pretty self-explanatory, some of these, but top here, this is the input. You'll select which input according to whatever input you're using at the time, what you're sampling or how you're sampling. See right below that, you got your mono stereo selection. Okay, right below that, your inserts. Now, I'm going to show you something extra here, okay? First off, before I show you the extra thing, I want to answer a question in case you have. Some people have asked, do I like to put inserts on the sampler? No, I don't personally. I'm not saying it's a bad idea or anything, but I don't personally. Rare occasions, sometimes. But what I want to show you, and this is cool. So anywhere that you have inserts, not just in the sampler, now check this out. See here, or if you're even in your mixer, here, your inserts, okay, or here, okay. You see this folder here, Sakai. You tap that there, and we come with a bunch of factory effects racks. Everything from drums and percussion. You can see vocal, guitar, bass, and of course down here you got your sampling. I have used add width mono, and for drums MPC 60 or the SP1200, but for the most part I don't. I wouldn't add width mono. I would do that when I process my sample. I wouldn't add width. I would just normalize it. Depending on what it is too. If it's drums, I would just normalize. Anyway, SP1200 or MPC 60. But anyway, so you can access those anywhere that there's inserts, whether it be, like I said, channel mixer from your main. Here, see. Okay. Even on your main output, it's just not on your main screen. It's just not a folder, a Kai folder. It's just this thing with a plus there like that. So, and then another cool set is down here, your performance, the DJ EQ, the mangler, drum mangler, spacey kill switch, and start pretty much all of them. But those ones I just named, the EQ, the drum mangler, spacey kill switch, and stutter are really awesome performance effects. Okay, so didn't want to veer off there, but just figure I'd give you a little extra sauce or a little extra tip that it's not just in your sampler. That's anywhere that you have effects, or inserts, you do have those factory racks, and there's a bunch of them. Okay, where were we at? Inserts. Okay, right below that we have this. This is your monitor. I want to make sure that that's in. That just means that we'll be able to hear and monitor our incoming audio when we sample. Okay, moving along here to the right. This red arrow it's not a volume fader. Okay, it's a threshold. It is used to allow recording only once the input signal exceeds the specified threshold or volume. Okay, what's the next thing here? Max length. So just as the title implies, max length controls the longest record time. Once recording reaches the set length, recording will stop. Threshold and max length can be used in conjunction with each other to fully automate the record start and stop process. I'll demonstrate that in the first method using the sampler here in a minute. Quickest way to change max length is with the Q-links. Q-link 3 is minutes. Q-link 4 is seconds. Okay, moving on up here, the tuner. Pretty much what you think it is. It indicates the tuning or key of incoming signal. Excuse me. You can see you select the proper input channel there according to your inputs being used, and here you can tune with your normal frequency, the normal tuning frequency of 440A, or you can change it to whatever you like. Okay. So what's next? All right, that's right, the Autosampler. Wow. Okay. So the Autosampler, wow, there's a lot here. The Autosampler is an amazing feature. And you can do some pretty advanced things with this, and it can be very involved, so it will definitely have to be on its own video. But I'll briefly explain what it can do. Okay, at its simplest, it allows you to sample more complex sounds, and essentially creates, it creates a pretty advanced key group out of it. So basically, two main ways the Autosampler is utilized. First, to sample, or really more accurately, to clone synthesizers, whether hardware or VST. So essentially, if you want to have like Serum, imagine any VST or hardware synthesizer, you know, and you'd like to be able to play it on here, that's what it's for. I personally have used it to sample in multiple patches of Serum and save them as a key group and label it as Serum. So I have playable versions of Serum patches in here, and Massive. And I've also pulled things from the Micro Freak. So that's really what it does. It allows you to really clone a synth. And then again, not to repeat myself, but to make it a playable instrument. So again, just imagine the possibilities. You know, you want to be able to have Serum, or, you know, Massive, or Vital, you know, any synth, or even hardware synth, Juno, Jupiter, whatever, doesn't matter. It allows you to clone it, okay, because of the way that it's set up. I'll open it up and just show you what it looks like. It's essentially, again, like I said, it creates a pretty advanced key group. So let's just open it up. We'll just show you. Obviously, you can. Here's a cool thing too, is that one awesome thing about it, you can auto sample internal plugins. I see right here, this is the current track, which determines what will be sampled. Track name is Jura. I would have to change the record output to resample, but yeah, you could use the auto sampler to resample plugins, internal plugins. So, and as you can see, anyway, moving down here, we have all kinds of different settings, your minimum and maximum note, your note stride, and here comes your like velocity layers. It pretty much looks a lot like when you create a key group and then go into your program edit. It's got a lot of the same features. The thing is, it's got these advanced settings ahead of time. See, it's got, you know, your vector velocity layering, sample layering, same amount of layers too as the key group 8. You know, it's got your sampling note length and tail, looping options, whether it's, you know, forward, back, off, or alternating, all kinds of different crossfader, depending on your samples here. So yeah, you get a lot more of advanced settings ahead of time. If you were to compare like an auto sampler to key group, you get the settings ahead of time, and the auto sampler is a lot better for, like I said, cloning synths. So that's the first way. Another way that people use it, I haven't personally, but is multi-sampling real instruments, strings, bass, guitar, etc. Okay, so that's what we got so far, and now it's time to get to work, folks. All right, so the first way is really cool. I mentioned it in the beginning, and what makes this really cool and special, and I've been using it a lot as of late, is the fact that you don't need any external sound. It's resampling. That's right. So you can resample your internal plugins, any sound that can be played on a pad, okay? And all you have to do is two things. Have an instrument loaded up, right? That you want to, okay? So I just got the piano, right? See? I got it in chord mode, right? But you load it up, and then you're going to come up in here to your, and all the way at the bottom, see it says resample. You have three options there. Resample left, resample right. I'm going to choose LR. Okay, now I'm going to set this back here for a reason. I'm going to show you something. So when you first load it up, you're like, what? It sounds very low, right? Like, come on, really? Is it? Huh? No. So you come back to your pad perform, and you're like, what is going on? Well, what's going on when you put it in resample mode like that? What it's doing is it's essentially creating a key group out of 128 MIDI channels. So it's spreading it from bank A all the way to H. You know, so And I'll show you how I figure that. I just go into browse here into your sample sign, and you can see, look, it's all the way down to negative C2. Hold on. All the way up to G8. You can't even hear it so high. You know what I mean? So, again, you can see there that's what it's done. Essentially, sort of created. What it's doing is kind of two things. This is from my observation, is that it is internally routing the output back into an input internally, and then it's also creating a key group like you just saw, 128 notes spread across. So unfortunately, when that happens, you can come up your pads, but what do you notice? First thing is that we don't have the chords anymore, right? So there's a workaround to that, and I'll show you that in a second. But so first thing, I'll show you how. Another thing we talked about earlier was using a threshold and the max length to automate the start and stop. So first thing, get your level. See where your level is. All right. Make sure it's going to be above that threshold. It is, right? And again, let's say, for the example's sake, earlier it was a guitar or something, and we just knew that it was going to be like a 5-second lick. Set it low like that. That way, then we hit arm, and once we play, it'll start, and then we keep playing until it hits the end. It'll stop, just like so. See, doesn't do anything until I. See, so that if you didn't have free hands, that's perfect because it automated the start and stop. You had to hit arm, and that's it. So again, perfect example, playing guitar, violin, whatever you're doing, and you just get that set up. All you have to do is hit arm and then start playing. So now from here we have the option to save. Okay, we can play back. Let's start from here. Playback. Yeah, it's trash, I know. Okay, if you hit save, give you the option to come here and save it. Like if we wanted to save it where we set up the folder, okay? Or keep will not save it, but it'll put it in your sample pool, okay? And then edit will take you right into the sample edit and let you edit outright, okay? So we'll discard for now. But again, we lose the pad performance, right? So what if we want to, well, we can obviously, if we know how to play, and I do, we can whip out the keyboard and play keys. But if we want the pad perform, what we do, come into your arranger, because you already have the instrument set up, right? So what we're going to do is figure out what you want to record, right? All right, that's whatever. And I'll show you what to do. So just record in your MIDI. Okay, it doesn't need to be perfect. So now that we've got our chords in, all you have to do here is just push and hold. And now you get two options. You can get bounce to audio track, which will immediately create an audio track right below it, or you can bounce to sample, which will then puts it into the sample pool. I don't like that. And you come in here, to the browse. Yep, and there it is. Okay, so moving along, the next 4 ways are going to be, how do I explain this? They're going to be techniques, just like the title says. Okay, we're going to be utilizing the sampler, and there are 4 main ways, and you'll see here in a second. But I want to address something. This is not going to be 4 different ways or 5 different ways, as in how to bring sound in. In other words, it's not going to be about how to sample from a phone or how to sample from a microphone, etc., etc. we'll be sampling in one way. That's with a record player. The emphasis is going to be on the technique on how we capture it on the MPC. Okay, but I will give some pointers here. Some of them may be kind of obvious, but maybe not. So I will give some pointers here as far as sound sources. So if you have a phone, obviously, especially an older one with a headphone jack, you get a wide cable and then it would go into the back. And this is why we're not just doing different devices, because at the end of the day, it's all a cable in the back. So an older phone, headphone jack, and I'm gonna add something right here. My go-to cable for an MPC is a 1/4 inch, because I have 3 different models. They all have different kinds of inputs, yet they all have 1/4 inch. All right, so that's a phone, and then you may have the want to sing, and then if you do, you get XLR. Of course, that's female, but what I like to do is, again, to 1/4 inch. So just showing you some options. And of course, if you want to go XLR to XLR, if your machine takes it, then have at it. Next way I can think of is Bluetooth. I wanted to address next is, let me try to do this. Now, I Bluetooth my phone into a Tascam Model 12 right there. It is a mixer, obviously, and that's mainly how I use it. Interface, audio interface, and MIDI. Got a MIDI in and out 5-pin port in case you need to bring it into the PC. So you have MIDI and audio interface. Controller for like 9 different DAWs. All your major ones are all Logic, Ableton, Reaper, a bunch of them, Cubase. But then some people forget it's a portable recorder. This is essentially like the new, and I'm not trying to sell it, but it's essentially like the new Porta Studios. They used to be the 4-track with the cassette, but now it's you put the SD card in, you get 8 XLRs and a bunch of. Anyway, if you can afford it, $600. You Bluetooth it right in. You can pick this channel right here, then you send it out via cable, aux cable. But look, I know not everybody can afford that either. So I do have a solution for you. Is it necessary that we have a mixer? Well, we're talking about Bluetooth again, so yes. Until Akai decides that they want to let that Bluetooth do more than just give us a keyboard. We may have Bluetooth sampling one day. I don't know if I'd even use it. So I'm going to suggest something in this thing, okay? And I'm going to suggest this brand too. I know it's some weird brand, yes, Tuga, but the reason why is because I had a couple more before it, and I had to send it back. The first one was plastic and broke. Second one didn't even turn on, I don't remember. Something was wrong with it. Finally got this one, and they were different brands. So it's the Tuga, Tuga EV6, okay? And solid metal. I like that. I've dropped it. It's fun. It's solid. It's got the little phone holder here, and since we're talking about Bluetooth, that's the first thing I want to say is that it takes Bluetooth. You can't see anywhere here. When you turn it on, though, it's simple. You just turn it on. It comes here, and as soon as you select this assist selector, either gives you right here like channel, as you can see, channel 5 or 6, or USB. So you push down, and you either get USB or Bluetooth. And as far as Bluetooth, what we're talking about, it would show up as Sheriff. There's no indicator on here. It shows up as Sheriff on your phone. Connect it. Now you can run samples through it. You can set your phone right here, run your samples through it. If you have, your main out's actually being utilized for your monitors, you can use the phone out. It has an independent headphone control. Yes, it's got rotary levels, but for $80, it's got 4 combo jacks. All with the 48 Phantom for mic. it's 5-volt USB-C, and then technically, yeah, 6 channels because 2 are mono or a stereo. And another thing I like about it is the effects. This is why I've kept it, even though I have the Model 12. I'll link to this in the description. I think it's like 80 bucks. So another thing I like about it is 7-band EQ on the master, and then I like how they split the main left and right. In case you decided to mono out, you needed one to go to a monitor, one to go to a main, you'd have separate. So, not trying to sell it to you, but look, if you need the Bluetooth in, and not only that, this is what I first got when I had my MPC1, and I realized I needed a medium to get things in, and ended up getting this. So I'll link it in the description. All right, folks, moving right along. So far I've shown you one way. Well, really, there's 2 ways to resample, by coming up here and resampling, or just by going into your arrange, recording it out, right? So there's really 2 ways there, but it's 5 ways that I'm going to be showing you. So that's part of the first way. Okay, I showed you some sound sources. Now we're going to be moving right along, okay? And as you can see, I have a record player here. And before we move along, some of this, again, may be self-explanatory, but just in case it's not, okay, if you have a record player, you may already know this. Again, might be self-explanatory, but if you have a record player, more than likely going to have RCAs, okay? So just any of you out there that maybe don't have an MPC yet, and this and that, it's something to think, ahead for. So if you have a record player, it's going to have RCAs, more than likely. I'm not saying there aren't record players out there that, don't have other forms of output. For the most part, your Technique 1200s, most of your record players are going to have RC. This is a Pioneer PLX 500. Not top of the end, but or top of the line, but they work. So anyway, moving along, your options, if you have RCAs, okay, and you don't have an X, or you don't have a Live 2, or anything that has RCAs, you got a couple options. First and foremost, your most obvious would be, let's say you only have a 1/4 inch in the back, or something else, you don't have RCAs. Obviously a, female to this, and then you'd have to get one of these, and that's all fine, okay, that works. However, I'm going to suggest something here, okay. Now, when I bought my record player, I only had a MPC1 Plus. I didn't have the XSE yet. So, 2 things. I had to, I wanted to be able to scratch, so I needed a little bit of crossfader. No, I'm not that good. Little chirps and crabs and stuff like that. But the point is, first off, I needed some way to get my sound into my machine, because, the MPC1 does not have, One Plus doesn't have RCAs. So, I went online to look, and if you're looking for something like that, something A, to get your record player into a MPC that doesn't have RCAs, or B, looking for a crossfader, or even C, maybe just looking for something to have between the record player and here, I suggest this is the Gemini MM1, as you can see, 2-channel DJ Mixer. Yes, everything's rotary, 55 bucks. I will link it in the description, okay? And got a nice little crossfader here. Does it bleed? Tiny little bit, but for 55 bucks. And then I believe they have, I don't believe, I know they do. I was going to say, I believe it's called the MM2. There's a one that's right up from this. That's a little bit more. I don't want to quote the price. Maybe another 25 bucks or something. I want to say like maybe 75 bucks. Comes with Bluetooth. So if you're looking for a little 2-channel DJ mixer, something just to maybe scratch with or to get your records in, this is what I suggest. And obviously, if you have RCAs, it's self-explanatory. They're going to go right into the pack. Okay, I'll just show you, because just in case. So I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You can see here. Okay, but what I do want to point out is, if you do decide to just go right in, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, but you're going to need to make sure a couple things that goes in, and B, if you have A, obviously red on red, white on white. B, if you have an extra little
and you'll know if you do, mine doesn't. If you have a third little cord coming off here with a 2-pronged metal fork, that's going to be your ground. You're going to put it right underneath this metal thing here and then screw it down. And right here, you're going to have a switch. If you're coming directly from the record player, make sure you go to phono, okay? And that's what this is. This is phono, and this is going to be your line. Okay, so since we're going to be coming in through a mixer, we're going to switch it to line, because this is my mixer here. Okay, so pretty self-explanatory. I just put these in here. I just want to explain to anyone, just in case they don't know. Okay, your mixer is going to need to have the RCAs that goes in here. I chose the right channel over here. Now the main out comes out. RCA to 1/4 inch, and then there we go. So that's our setup that we'll be using from here on out. Now moving right along, okay? So we've done one way, that's resampling, right? Okay, now we're going to be moving right along. The second way is, let me turn this on. The second way is going to be right here, and it's the first way you normally sample in, okay? And it's just called your default sample. And this is called your default sample, and again, if you have an MPCX, you want to make sure that you come in and have the back one, just because you won't, otherwise you won't get sound. Okay, is that all in? All right, so the default way to sample is, I'll demonstrate. So again, the video is 5 ways. We've been through 1, really 2. The other 4 are going to be right here, okay? So this is the second way, known as your default sample, and that's going to be your first option. When you open up your sampler, it's selected right there. We've come in input 3, 4, select whether you want mono or stereo, and let's go ahead and so I've decided to go ahead and choose I couldn't figure out which kind of record to use because I didn't want to get copyright strike. So it's just a regular scratch record, got a bunch of samples on them, perfect for demonstrating. So our first thing we're going to want to do is obviously make sure everything before your proper inputs. You set your mono, stereo, whatever you want. You make sure your monitor's in, and then I already have it lined up here. So we're going to do a drum break. It's going to be perfect to show you the first 2 ways. Okay, same thing as resampling. You want to first get a little. Okay, it's right there. There. Just want to make sure that comes above the threshold. Remember, I'm going to keep this on, hold it in place, hit arm. Then as soon as it goes, it should. There. Now, one thing you'll notice about your default sampling when you do it, okay, it's every time you default sample the first way, it's always going to come up with a keep or discard. Okay, so it's a little bit slower way of sampling, but you may want to do it this way. This gives you an opportunity to hear what it sounds like, just like resampling. Again, saving it gives you an option to save it somewhere you want. You can play it back. Keep it doesn't save it like into your SD card or whatever. It will just put it into your sample pool, and then editing it, obviously, see, just gives you a, okay, so done with that. Okay, that's the second way. That is just called your default sample way. And the reason why I'm showing you these is, again, I mentioned it earlier and I'll reiterate it again now, is the fact that it's good to be acquainted with the types of sampling or the methods of sampling, because this will help your workflow. So like I said before, ahead of time, you may be thinking, you may be away from your decks, you may be at work, and like I am sometimes, and I'm thinking, yeah, I want to sample. What do I want to sample? I like that that melody or that beat or that whatever, and I can go ahead and start thinking ahead of time which method I'd like to use, because they're all different. Like you saw, the sample is, each time you sample in, it's going to prompt you to save or to edit it. So it's a little slower way. But if you're, if you're going to catch maybe one sample, or you know exactly what you want, that would be the way to go. Okay, that's our second way. Our third way now is slice, okay? And it's exactly as it sounds, okay? This is perfect for, I say, like drum beats, drum breaks. Let's back this up a little bit. Let's see. Let's turn this down a little bit. We're going to back this up. Now, you can use slice for melodies or anything. I'm using that same drum break to show you. What's going to happen is you're going to arm it just like normal. Your threshold set below. As soon as it goes, get ready to start slicing, because this is what slice does. It lets you slice the sample as you sample it in, okay? So arm, and then and again with the second way, slice. So let me reiterate. When you resample, when you default sample, when you slice, it's going to come up with the options, okay? See? If you hit create right now, it's going to go ahead and create right here, a new drum program with your slices, but you may want to come in here and edit your samples. But go ahead, see, it goes ahead and lines up your slices. So if you're familiar with the sample a little bit, you may want to go ahead and do that. Okay, so that's our first, second, third way. And what you'll notice with each one of those ways is that each time you sample in, whether it's resample, default sample, or slice, each time you're done, it's going to stop, ask you to save, discard, create, whatever. Okay, so it's a little slower way, but there's nothing wrong with that. So let's say first way was resampling. Within that vein, we were able to go into our arranger and just record in there and then bounce the sample. Okay, that's sort of resampling as well. First way. Second way was the default sample. Third way was slice. And now we're getting into the last two ways here are, for lack of a better way to describe this, it's just quicker way. Okay, so, and this is part of the reason why I decided to use a sample record, because it's, you know, if you don't know what a sample record, scratch record is, it's got bunches of different, so you can scratch. Next one is, see?
Oh shucks, oh, what? Take it back, poof. That's the new shit.
Right, see, so the goal with this here is to actually, if you want to catch a bunch of different cuts without having to stop and save every time, these last two options are going to be your way. Pad tap is exactly, what it says. You're going to tap a pad, starting wherever you want, but I start with pad 1. You tap to start recording. Tap again to stop the recording, and I'll do it right now. Okay, so if you're trying to get a bunch of little cuts, let's start here. Right there. So again, we're gonna arm, right? And as soon as we let off, it's gonna start recording. And what we're gonna do is when we hear something we like, we're gonna tap to start recording again and tap to stop. So, oops, didn't arm it. Arm. Messed that one up. Let's go to another one. I'm just going to show you how you can.
Check this out, yo. Kick it out.
And yes, it will keep running. That's why you want to put your time all the way as high as it can go. But it's only going to record what you tap. So
That's the new shit. That's the new shit. That's the new shit.
that's the do shit. And we come on over this next one here.
Attack, attack. Attack, attack. That fantastic attack, attack. That fantastic attack. One, fantastic attack, attack. That fantastic attack, attack. That fantastic. I rock.
There's another one. I rock hardcore.
I rock hardcore. That's right. I rock hardcore.
Okay, now that you've got, I messed up on some of those. Like I said, that's going to just keep running, okay? But it's only going to record what's here, and what you'll notice come right out to your main. And now you already have it. It doesn't ask you to save. It doesn't ask you to keep it, discard. It just...
Yeah. Yeah. That's the new shit. Yeah. Attack with tactics. That's fantastic. I rock hardcore. That's right.
Okay, so you see what I mean? It's good if you want, the pad tap is good if you got a bunch of little cuts that you know that you may want to come in and sample, okay? Or if, let's say you're listening to a new record, I would either choose pad tap or pad hold, and I'm getting ready to show you that. In other words, if there's a new record you're putting on and you're not sure what's going to be on there, your pad tap or your pad hold are going to be the way. That way you could just sit back, and when you hear something, oh, back that up a little bit, you know what I mean? And then you could tap to record. Or now we're into the last way, right? Okay, so pad hold is a lot like pad tap. And you notice when we did pad tap, it automatically created the drum program. So before I forget, when you do pad hold, you need to come into your main and create a blank drum track, okay? And if you don't, it'll remind you when you come into sampler. These will be flashing red. They're yellow right now. Okay, so pad tap will create the drum program for you. Pad hold, you need to come in and make sure that you create a blank drum program. And if you don't, again, it'll tell you when you start to do it, hey, you need to create a drum program. So pad tap and pad hold are very similar in styles. To me, my favorite out of the last two ways is pad hold. Matter of fact, pad hold is probably my favorite way next to resampling, simply because you can just hold the pad to record, and when you're done, let off. Unlike pad tap, where you have to tap the pad, sometimes I forget to tap to stop recording. I'll just go to the next one. Now that may work, but you have to tap and then retap. Pad hold is just hold it. Like say this is a pad, you hold it, and then let off, it'll stop. Then you can just wait till you hear the next sound or skip through the record. So let's demonstrate. So
Yeah.
again, gonna be arm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah. Oh shucks. Yeah. Yeah. Oh shucks. Oh yeah. Oh shucks. Oh oh shucks. Get back poop. Get back poop. Oh shucks. Oh what? Take this. Oh shucks. Oh what? Oh shit.
Oh, there's already a scratch there.
Take it back poop. Take it back poop. Take it back poop.
Yeah.
New shit, hot, that's the new shit, hot, that's the new shit, hot, that's the new shit.
That fantastic attack with tactics. That fantastic attack with tactics. That fantastic attack with tactics. That fan.
Hardcore. That's right. I rock hardcore. That's right. I rock hardcore.
See how you can just grab a bunch of...
Brains out to work, bow. Putting brains out to work, bow. Putting brains out.
ODB. I never heard that one.
Oh yes I can make them bounce. Oh yes I can make them bounce. Oh yes I can make them.
All right, just like that. And just like with the pad tap, well, it doesn't create when you need to create the drum, but...
Oh shucks. Oh
And of course, you need to edit them. You just come into your sample edit. Actually, I take that wrong. I take that back. You have to come into program edit. Come to samples. Yeah. And now you can fix each start stop as you wish, just like anything else. But yeah, it's...
oh shucks. Oh take it back poop.
That's the new shit.
Tactics. That fantastic attack.
Hardcore. That's right. Rock hardcore. That's right.
Putting brains out to work. Yes I can
All right.
make them bounce. Oh yes I.
So, what's your favorite way? Let me know down in the comments. Now, it may be hard to pick because for me it is. I like to resample. I like knowing that I can sample anything that's on my machine without having to have additional or extra sound. Probably my favorite way is the way that we just did it, and that's because you can just grab bunches of cuts. You know what I mean? Very rarely will I use, well, I don't want to say very rarely. When I use this here, the default sample way is if I know that there's a single sample I want to catch, you know what I mean? And that's it. The slice for drums, even for melodies, mostly for drums, use it however you want. Your imagination is your only limit. And again, the pad tap will create the drum program for you. The pad hold won't. But the last two ways are for catching lots of little, little cuts. All right, folks. Well, that's it. And so again, this was just methods of sampling. Okay, this will be a 3-part series. The next one is going to be we're going to dig into the Autosampler, and then I think after that we're going to get into sample chopping. So each one of my videos that you see up right now, if you're familiar with my channel, cool. If not, you can go see. I don't have very many long format. I think like 6. Each one of those is the beginning of another, not another series. It's the beginning of its own series. Okay, so you can expect more from this. This was just utilizing methods built into the sampler. We're going to be exploring in another video the Autosampler, and you can look forward to, like I said, looking into more advanced sampling techniques and chopping. All right, but until then, I hope this was helpful. Take it easy, folks. Until next time.